When you think of your English, have you ever felt like you needed to learn more grammar or more vocabulary to feel more proficient or to feel more confident in your English? If that sounds like you, then the first thing I want you to know is that you're not alone. I have students that are telling me, I study so much grammar, I read so much, I invest so much time. And then when I am the one who has to do the writing, I feel insecure, I feel like I'm not using the right words, I feel like it's all coming out wrong. I hear this from student after student after student, and so I know that this is a struggle for legal English learners. And I know that the go-to solution is, well, I need to study more grammar and I need to study more vocabulary and more. But that's not true. That is a huge misconception. I'm Paula Clammer. I'm a lawyer, translator, and legal English coach. And for the past 20 years, I've worked at the intersection between law and language, helping high-performing global professionals to really communicate effectively in English as a second or foreign language. I want to talk about one of the things that I think are really at the heart of learning and mastering legal English, which is working through our language one interferences. This might be the first time that you hear the term language one interference. It's not something that people talk about a lot. For whatever reason, it's not really part of our common knowledge about second language acquisition. But I really think that it should be, and that's why I've created this video for you. Language one interferences are when your mother tongue creeps in. When we're speaking a second or foreign language, our mother tongue will very often get in the way of our communication. It interferes. Interferes is like it interrupts the flow of that communication. And we end up being very literal, like we're literally translating from our mother tongue because we think, well, this is the best way to say that. This communicates what I'm trying to say. But in reality, although that gives us more control over our words, it does not really give us more control over how our message is understood. It usually achieves the opposite of that. When we're very literal, when we translate word for word from our mother tongue, we get these interferences, and the person who's listening to us may not necessarily be able to understand what we're trying to say. And it's not a matter of grammar. Sometimes there are language one interferences, and I will give you an example today, where the grammar is not technically incorrect, but the interference is still there. A lot of times when there's a language one interference, you can back translate word for word into your mother tongue. So back translate means you start from English and you go back to your mother tongue. And if the translation is very literal, if they mirror each other, there's very likely going to be a language one interference there. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you need to avoid. If you're writing, then you need to go back and rewrite. So I want to get into this example, and I just want to read to you what the example says and help you sort of work out what the language one interference is here so that you can start to identify what these language one interferences look like. And so the example reads, the rights that correspond to the insured against a third party due to a loss are transferred to the insurer up to the amount of the compensation paid by the insurer plus interest. Now, you can probably see that there are things that don't really sound right in English, and they might be difficult to understand. It might be hard to figure out what the person is really trying to say. One of those parts, one of those elements where we can see a very clear language one interference is where it says the rights that correspond to the insured. But I think what they meant to say was the insured's rights. And so notice that what I tend to gravitate toward naturally in English is possessive case, the insured's rights, apostrophe S, meaning possession. Now there's a second element to this. There's the part where the person is saying something like the insured's rights or in their language, the rights that correspond to the insured against a third party, this against a third party. This is a concept that if you're a civil lawyer, then you've heard this concept before and it sounds natural to you. But not everyone will be able to do that translation. If the person who was reading this were a common law lawyer, they would have a hard time understanding what this person means. And so really what would have been a little bit clearer here would have been if the author had said the insured's rights enforceable against a third party. And so the takeaway here is this. I'm pretty sure that if I took the author and I asked them, hey, can you back translate this into French? I am pretty sure that their English and their French would be mirror images of each other. And I can tell that because I see this language one interference. So the takeaway for you is to do that, especially when you're doing it in writing. Start by training yourself to identify your language one interferences in your writing. It's easier to find them in writing than it is in our verbal communication, because verbal communication goes by really quickly and you can't be second guessing yourself as you're speaking. I'm not recommending that you do that. That's only going to make you feel paranoid and insecure as you speak. So to train yourself, or to begin to train yourself to overcome language one interferences, my recommendation is that you start to do it in your writing. Every time you write something that is law related, go back and just analyze your own sentences and try to do that back translation. If it back translates word for word, there's probably a language one interference and there's something there that you're going to need to fix. Number 2, I want you to find your patterns, right? And so this is different from looking for literality. If you're very analytical about your own writing, you're going to find that there are things that you write the same way, that you use the same structure for over and over again. Those are patterns, right? You can be pretty sure that you have some kind of pattern there. And L1 interferences usually show up in our patterns. Number 3 is not so much a writing exercise as it is a reading exercise. What I want you to do is, I want you to find someone who writes in English, in legal English, because of course we're trying to hone your legal English skills. So I want you to find someone who you think is a really good writer. It doesn't have to be a native English speaker. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Just someone who, when you read them, you think, wow, they write really well. I wish I could write like that. And I want you to just take a few minutes a day, maybe 5 minutes a day, to do some targeted reading, mindful reading. Just read this person, set the clock. If you don't have a lot of time, set a little timer for 5 minutes and just spend 5 minutes reading them, but don't just read. Read mindfully. Look for patterns in that person's writing. Pay attention to how they use certain key elements that you've learned to use in the past. Pay attention to how they use verb tenses. Pay attention to how they structure their sentences. Pay attention to how many adverbs and adjectives they use in their writing. Are their sentences long? Are their sentences short? Do they use a variation? What that's going to help you to do is it's going to help you to have a clear, or to come up for yourself with clear writing goals. How you want to write and the kind of voice that you want to develop in English is really personal. It makes no sense for someone to tell you, just do it this way and always write this way. It's important that you develop your own voice. And you can develop your own voice with the help of people who you think are really good authors and who have voices that you feel, this resonates with me. I would love to be able to communicate like them. I would like to imitate their style. It doesn't mean you're going to write exactly like them. You're going to bring your own personality into it, but it helps to learn from people who do things really well. Number 4, I would like you to find a study buddy. In particular, if you have someone that you can pair up with whose mother tongue is different from your mother tongue, but who also wants to learn legal English, That is an ideal study buddy. Now, the reason that someone whose mother tongue is different from yours is an ideal study buddy is because they can't back translate in their head. So if they truly don't understand something that you've written, or that you've said, they'll be able to tell you. And so what I want you to do with your study buddy is maybe once a week, just exchange something in writing with that person, or spend some time talking with that person and ask them to give you feedback on things that you may have written or said that they had a hard time understanding. And what was it about that piece of writing or that thing that you said that made it hard for them to understand? That is how your study buddy and you can help each other to pinpoint your language one interferences. And so I know that some people are reluctant to studying with other people, but you know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So if you really want to hone your skills, it helps to learn with somebody else and to have that constant feedback. And number 5, I want to encourage you to also sign up for my newsletter. It's free. I publish it every Sunday. And in my newsletter, I publish tips and tricks where you learn about legal English. So it's 5 things that I have recommended today, just to give you a little recap. Number 1, identify your language one interferences by checking for literality. Number 2, find your own patterns. Number 3, do some targeted reading. Number 4, find a study buddy and give each other feedback. And number 5, sign up for my newsletter. You will find it at PaulaKlammer, KLAMMER.com/newsletter. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy the video, I would love to get a little thumbs up from you. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and please feel free to share this information with anyone out there who you think will find it helpful. Thank you so much for your time and for visiting this channel. I hope you enjoyed.